Well, hello there, and thank you for joining me for this quick video. I'm really glad you're here because I think you're about to learn something that's going to make a huge difference for your pain issue, how you think about your body, how you think about your future. So, obviously, if you're here, you have a pain issue. It could be something that bothers you every single day, or it could be something that only bothers you intermittently. But what I want you to know is that if this pain issue is causing you to change your plans, if it is hindering or limiting any activity in your life, or if it's playing into how you consider your future, then you need to hear this information, okay? So, I'm an evidence informed wellness coach for people who are challenged by chronic pain. And that means that if I recommend something to my client or to you, that it has been studied and that there is good evidence to support its effectiveness. So, let's just sort of lay some groundwork here. Most people with chronic pain identify movement as something that hurts and has the potential to re-injure them or cause agonizing flares. But what I have to tell you today will hopefully transform you from someone who fears movement into someone who is a movement optimist and knows how to use movement to overcome their pain. That's why we're here. That's what I'm going to show you today. So, what do you think is the number one thing that's keeping you stuck in pain? Is it one of these things that I put on this slide? Do you think it's because your injury was just sufficiently severe that you're never really ever going to recover? Or maybe you had surgery on something and so you think, well, that's just how it is now. Um, do you think that your posture or postural habits or postural imbalances are the number one factor keeping you in pain? Or is it your health status? Maybe you're thinking, okay, well, I'm overweight, I'm out of shape, that's why I hurt. Here's one that I hear all the time. I'm just getting older. Being in pain is part of life. It's just the normal wear and tear. I hate that one. Do you feel that perhaps your injury never fully healed? And that's why it's just festering and even getting worse over time? Or do you think that the reason that you're still in pain is because you just never got the right treatment for your pain issue? That if you could find the right doctor or the right therapist or get the right pillow, that the pain would be a thing of the past. So let me tell you that the information I'm about to give you may be quite new for you and even quite surprising, because it turns out that there is, according to the evidence, one factor that contributes the very most to whether pain will transition from acute to chronic, and it's none of these. It's none of these. So when an injury occurs or pain starts, there is a period in time where either the injury will take its natural history and it will improve, you will heal, you will move on with life, or or will an injury occur, cause lots of pain, never get better, and even get worse over time? If you are in that second category, congratulations, you have chronic pain. So let's talk about what you're supposed to do about this, okay? So the same factor that will determine whether pain will transition from acute, remember I said injury gets better, life goes on, or injury gets worse, stays forever, right? One factor can determine what will happen in the previous scenario. This same factor can also predictably determine how much disability a person will experience as a result of their pain. So here's how the science around this topic gets made. If we took a bunch of people with persistent pain, 6 months post-injury, and we tested them for this one factor, we could actually predict who would experience disability and how severe. Who would experience disability and how severe based on this one factor, based on how much of this factor was present. For example, Is this person's life inhibited a little bit? Or are they unable to do their housework, unable to work consistently, sliding into an uncomfortable level of dependency, maybe unable to drive comfortably? So the magnitude of disability in this research is actually independent of how much pain a person has and even biomedical findings, what your scans show. So this one factor is more determinative of how much disability a person will have as a result of a pain issue than how much pain they're in and what their scans show. Okay? So are you starting to see how important this one factor is? There is one more thing I want to tell you about with regard to this factor before I actually tell you what this factor is, okay? So the presence of this one thing, this one factor can predict actually how long a person will experience disability. Are you ready to find out what this factor is? Because apparently this one thing is causing you a lot of problems, right? You're starting to see how important this one thing is. So what is it? What is this thing that keeps you stuck in pain long after the original injury, way past normal tissue healing time? What is this one thing that causes pain to slowly steal all of the things you love doing from your life, that keeps you from being active, social, keeps you from sleeping well, keeps you from being the partner that you want to be or the parent that you want to be? What is it? It's fear. In the pain science research, it's called fear avoidance. For example, Vlayan and colleagues have reported that fear of movement and re-injury was a better predictor of chronic back pain patients' self-reported disability than were factors such as their physiological sensory perception of pain, as well as any underlying biomedical findings, like I said in the previous slide. So fear trumps the results of an MRI. It trumps even how much pain you are in this one factor. I hope I've got you now, because I'm going to help you to understand how this happened, and then I'm going to help you to understand how the heck to get out of this hole, okay? So let's talk about a tale of two healing cycles, because fear avoidance is all about perception. So in one healing cycle, the one where there's an injury, the person heals, gets better, never thinks about chronic pain ever again. That individual has confronted pain. They have confronted movement. They know that it's safe for them to move, so they stay active. They rest just the right amount. They feel pain, but they don't perceive it as dangerous. And they heal and they move on with life. In the second scenario, which is I'm thinking you because you're watching this video, they feel that movement is dangerous. So they experience pain as significantly threatening, which leads to hypersensitivity in all of their bodily systems and protection, heightened protection. And this, of course, as you know, perpetuates a cycle of misery. So the person on the left doesn't fear their pain. They understand that tissues heal. They've gotten positive messages from their medical providers. They know that they will get better, and their pain even may have a purpose. But the person on the right, like you, has gotten all kinds of negative messages about their body and about injury. They're hearing things like, oh, you've got bone-on-bone knees, you have a slipped disc, etc. So they have a wear and tear model of their body and doubt their ability to heal. They have been sidelined from their role in healing, which is the exact opposite of my approach, by the way. So the person on the right is really sensitive, and with time, that sensitivity leads to more fear and more avoidance, which leads to more sensitivity and on and on and on. It's horrible, and it just gets worse and worse. And so this may be why you find that not only did your injury never really heal, but it's actually getting worse, which doesn't make any sense, right? But now it does. Now you understand that this fear feeds sensitivity, which feeds fear. So the most tangible difference between these two individuals is that one confronted movement and wasn't afraid that it was dangerous, and the other developed an avoidance of movement out of the fear that it would re-injure them or cause more pain. And it's hard to pin down why someone might go down the road of avoidance. But from my experience with clients and my understanding of the scientific literature, here are some of the major factors that contribute to this, why you may be in the column on the right, okay? So if the injury occurred during a traumatic event, like a really scary car accident, even a very small injury can become a big deal when it is combined with emotional trauma, okay? So think about the genesis of your pain condition. Did it happen in conjunction with emotional trauma? Or do you not have a specific injury that you can point to, but your pain issue did occur during a very difficult, potentially traumatic time of life? Well, that's important because early life trauma predisposes us to developing chronic pain later in life. Here's one that you may not know about, which may seem a little bit strange at first, but family or societal norms around pain and injury are really important factors feeding you into the column on the right. For example, if your upbringing gave you wear and tear beliefs about your body, or taught you that you have little control around healing and recovery, society still maintains, unfortunately, despite all the abundance of evidence, that the body is very mechanistic. So we have a very mechanistic view of the body, right? The body is a machine. When parts wear out, that's that. You just got to replace them, right? But that's not accurate. Machines can't adapt like biological entities, like you. Our tissues don't wear out due to use, they adapt to use. Here's a huge factor feeding you into the column on the right. Messages from medical professionals. This one is really common and well supported in the science. Doctors sometimes, often, can give us very pessimistic messages about the body that are not actually rooted in evidence and are playing a role in this epidemic of chronic pain. So you're probably wondering, how is this even supposed to help me? What is this information is supposed to do for me? It's fear. Okay. Let me tell you about one of my clients. This is Deanna, and the video that you're seeing is the first time Deanna lifted more than 100 pounds in her sumo deadlift, which was her favorite lift. 2 years before this, she was afraid to do pretty much any movement. She was so stiff and uncomfortable. It felt like every time she tried to get active, she ended up in a flare, and even worse than before. You may be familiar with this cycle. She avoided stairs. She avoided socializing, and she felt too embarrassed to participate in family events that she really desperately wanted to do. She felt shame that people older than her were so much more active and capable, and she felt so fragile. Now she works out about 3 times a week. She loves eating healthy. This milestone video was really just at the beginning of her journey with sumo deadlifting. She's lifting much more now. This story might feel familiar to you because just like you, she was avoiding just about everything. And her process to get to this point was not easy. It required so much hard work, but it was also really fun. It was also really affirmative. It was also really gratifying for her because each week she just felt more and more motivated because she was seeing progress. Okay, so coming back to movement, what movements are you currently avoiding? Most people who have a persisting pain issue may not identify as having fear. So when I said that before, you might be like, I don't feel fear, but Are you avoiding certain movements, like vacuuming, right? Standing at the kitchen counter, chopping. Does it take real extreme planning for you to get out of the driver's seat of your car? If those things are true, or any other movements that you're avoiding, that, my friend, is fear. That's what we're talking about, fear avoidance. And this is normal. This is normal human behavior. We wouldn't have become the dominant species on the planet if we didn't have the capacity to avoid danger and be attracted to safety. Our systems require a certain level of motivation to avoid activities in which we have been injured or experienced pain. Of course that our systems do that. This is important to avoid re-experiencing pain and, of course, causing more damage. But the problem is that the avoidance is no longer protecting us. It's now causing great harm. Now, this is very likely new information for you, and it's unlikely that your medical team has discussed this with you. Why is that? Well, there's no pill for eliminating fear. Surgeons can't treat fear. PT can't bill for treating fear, right? There's no code for treating fear. So that's why we don't hear about it from our medical team. So what does medicine do? It treats body parts that are injured, but medicine has woefully little to offer people who suffer from chronic pain. I can help. I can help you identify where avoidance is showing up in your life. And I'm going to take some time now to help you to see where it's showing up and what the heck you're supposed to do about it. Because it really sucks. The biggest problem with fear avoidance is that it starts to shrink your life. Avoiding movement keeps you from the stuff that makes you, you. It also makes you more prone to injury and to pretty much every chronic disease that exists. Our bodies evolved to move. Nothing about the human experience is optimal. When we do not have a rich diet of movement, social connections, family roles, and bonds, which are all disrupted when avoidance takes over. And from a biological perspective, our bodies break down when we don't challenge them. This is the true cost of fear. It not only amplifies pain, but it leads to depression and deconditioning that can make you more prone to injury. Inactivity is directly related to metabolic disorders and heart disease. So getting moving is vital. It can't be an option anymore. It's a must. Let me show you how. So I've been giving you a lot of bad news, right? And I'm sorry about that. And I'm going to make up for it because I want to now give you some good news. The good news about your body is that it is above all adaptable. You are a biological entity. And the solid foundation of biology is that it adapts. If your body, your unified self containing tissues, a nervous system, an immune system, a lifetime of thoughts, feelings, and beliefs could adapt to support chronic pain, you can also teach it to abolish chronic pain. Yes, you can. Notice that I said chronic pain, which is a different animal than acute pain. Pain is an important part of being alive, right? We need pain in our lives, but this maladaptive pain, pain that no longer serves a purpose to the entity that is you, that is not normal. So my process is based on mentorship with some of the most prominent pain science educators in North America. It's based on years of study and consumption of scientific literature. It's based on hundreds of clients' experiences, and it's based on my own struggles with chronic pain. So let me lay out the roadmap that will take you back to movement and away from harmful avoidance. Number one, education. Congratulations, you're doing that right now. You're becoming educated about pain, and that is an important step, an essential step. Number two is awareness. You must develop a deep embodied awareness of your body. Remember that the avoidance is not necessarily linked to the amount of pain or even the injury. The avoidance is because your systems are perceiving danger all the time when it doesn't exist. How can you perceive accurate data from the body? Embodied awareness. And I know you're thinking, how? My friend, it's miraculous. It's miraculous. And it's super, super important for your process. Next, graded exposure, which is the most scientifically supported technique for getting back to movement. My clients always begin with somatic education, which fosters awareness and non-threatening movement experiences to retrain the nervous system to be less hypervigilant, to develop a profound sense of confidence in the body again. And it's also important for you to begin to relearn how to feel things other than pain in places where you have only felt pain. And when that happens, I always know that my clients are on a really good trajectory. And then we also have to address all of the factors that amplify pain. And we have to learn how to manage those factors. We have to challenge our body. It's scary, but it is required to move fully and completely beyond this difficult stage of life. And then finally, you have to have a plan, a solid strategy for keeping pain in the rear view. Like my client, Deanna. Pain is part of having a body. The goal is not to never feel pain. It's to have a rock solid strategy for getting back on track when it does happen. My friend, you have a chronic pain issue, which means that your body will always prefer to get your attention through pain, and it's going to put it exactly back to the places where you have experienced chronic pain before. That's just part of you now, and it's part of me too. But when you know that flares don't have to be so bad, they can be shorter, and that you can spend more time between them, that is incredibly empowering. So what does this look like? What does this look like if you were to say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to employ some of these strategies, Mandy? First, it looks like finding ways to calm your nervous systems. I have tons and tons of videos and practices available on my podcast, available on YouTube to do this. But here's a really simple one, the cyclic sighing practice. It's so simple. You take in a breath. Without exhaling, you take in another breath. And then you exhale as slowly as you can. And you repeat that for a few minutes. It really can be that simple. It is a way to start to send good news to the nervous systems when they've only had some pretty disastrous news for quite some time. And then how do we start to build this awareness so that we can stop taking pain so personally? So personally, we can stop spinning and catastrophizing. How do we do that? Well, let me tell you about a really quick little interoceptive task. Anytime you feel pain or discomfort, you become aware of it, I will have you just ask yourself 4 questions about that painful area. Number 1, what is the temperature of the area? Number 2, is it moving? Is it still? What is the movement profile of the area at this time? Number 3, cohesiveness. Does it stay together like a rock, or is it a little bit more ethereal like a cloud or something in between? My favorite one ever was Peach Pit. I thought that was a really cool one. And then finally, what is the size of the pain? So anytime pain intrudes into your awareness, you're going to take a second and you're going to evaluate it for those things, and then you're going to walk away. You're going to leave it. This should take you 30 seconds. You could do it maybe 10, even 20 times a day, no more. And then finally, you need to begin to find movement, restore movement to your life that feels really good. Because like I said, you have to feel something in your body other than pain. And that's a really great sign that you're on a great track. And again, I have tons and tons of resources for you to do just that. I want to tell you about another one of my clients. I'll tell you about Marissa, who is just absolutely a doll. She just makes any room she walks into light up. But when we started working together, she was in horrible pain. She had sciatic pain down the back of her leg. She had horrible, horrible heel pain. She had other health issues at that time, including a recent diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. She was avoiding any walking, this poor woman, which was really hard because she has 2 young children. She was also a yoga instructor. at the time, and she felt like an imposter because she's sitting here telling everyone else about movement and she literally could not. So what did Marissa do? She started with pain science education, just like you are. She began to integrate movements into her life which were designed to reduce guarding and stiffness. That was somatic movement that I taught her. Marissa also engaged in nutrition coaching because we really wanted to address inflammation and the suboptimal healing that she was experiencing. And like I said, also, she was very concerned about her recent type 2 diabetes diagnosis. And then eventually, what did she do? She started strength training with me. And I'm happy to say that she's still doing strength training. This girl is a beast. She's lost weight. Her diabetes is well managed. And it all started from addressing her pain with the strategies that I've just told you about. It really can be that simple. Marissa is a really great example of how even very active people can benefit from this approach. And one more. Let me tell you about my client, Bambi. Bambi was someone who suffers from fibromyalgia, chronic back pain, chronic pelvic pain. And when Bambi discovered that she could engage in movement that was not designed to change the experience of her pelvis, but to simply experience it and become aware of it, she finally realized that it wasn't because she wasn't stretching enough. It wasn't because she wasn't doing the PT exercises well enough. It was because her body was guarding and she just had to listen to it. One of my favorite things that she said in her testimonial was that some of this will seem foolish at first. She was a skeptic, probably like you are too. But when she saw that it worked, she was all in, and she's doing so much better now. So how can you continue to engage with this? As I mentioned, I have so many practices available on my podcast and on my YouTube channel, but I also recommend that you download my ebook because that's going to take you through the process. It's going to give you way more information than I've even just given you here. And it's going to help you to have a step-by-step process that you can follow. There's also some really helpful prompts within the ebook, which are going to help you start to examine things on your own, just like you would do if you were working with me one-on-one or in a group setting. So I'm going to leave the link for that roadmap, and I really hope to see you in my community soon.